Hi guys, today is a bit of a different video. It's going to be more tutorial styled, and before I get started I would just like to add a little disclaimer that I am not a professional, nor do I claim to be a professional. So you can take my advice if you want to, and if this doesn't work for you then it doesn't, but this is what works for me and my art. So today is going to be about rendering, which if you don't know what rendering means in the art world, rendering is mostly kind of used as a buzzword. It really just means to finalize and make your art look more polished or 3D, just to like finish it up and really give it that extra life that it needs. So that's what we're going to be going over today. I will be going through everything that I do in my process step by step. So the first step is a rough sketch. In this drawing that I did, I cleaned up the sketch quite a bit though, so this is kind of a bad example, but I will put some examples on screen right now. I normally start with a really rough sketch layer, not really going into detail and only emphasizing really important shapes and parts that I want to focus on. Next up is the flats, which I'm doing right now. I like to use this flat marker brush by this user. I can't leave a link, but you'll see the details on screen. Something that I learned to do before picking my colors is making sure that my background color is a nice mid-tone or like neutral gray, which you can see in the background right now. And the purpose of this is to make sure that the colors I'm picking aren't too dark or too light. And you can see a difference here. When you change the color of the background, it really messes with how the colors look. So that's why you should always try and go for a mid-tone. It doesn't have to be gray, just a mid-tone of any color. It could be purple, it could be pink, blue, etc., etc. It is okay for the colors to be a little bit off or desaturated in your flat colors layer, because the other layers are going to kind of balance it out and cover it up. Mainly the most important thing here is just to make sure you color the entire piece so you just have a really nice foundation to work off of. A way easier way to do this would be to use the lasso tool and outline the entire character and then fill it in with a solid color and use that as a clipping mask. So it'll be easier to color, so you won't have to worry about going outside of lines or anything. That would be the smart way to do it, but I just do it this way. It takes longer this way, so you should probably just go with the lasso tool method. As for picking the colors themselves, I mostly use reference images, but I will say that you have to be really careful if you're directly picking from a picture, because each pixel can be a different color. So sometimes when you pick directly from the image and you start painting with it, you'll be like, wow, that doesn't look like the color that I picked at all. And sometimes it's not. It's because you picked from the one pixel that doesn't, exactly match the color you were going for. So you just have to be really careful with that. The way that I avoid that is I pick from the picture, but then I go and adjust in the color wheel to match what I want it to look like. That's the best way I found to do. Next step, which I've already been working on here, is the blushing and the light shading. This is a really light layer that I put on top of the flats. Since I normally draw people, I like to go in and add blush to the face, the knees, shoulders, just basically any joints. And I also use this blush as kind of a shadow for some shading. You can see like on the thigh and then on her like midriff. I think it really gives it a 3D look. I also like to go in with a little bit of a purpley color, very lightly for the shading. I put this under the head, like on the neck. I also do this with any clothing folds and a little bit around any exposed skin. Sometimes I also go in with a little bit of highlight to the face. I'm doing that to the shoulders right now. I also do this underneath the eyes and on her chest. This is where I spend most of my time on a piece, so really be prepared to be patient. This is going to be kind of difficult to explain, so I'm going to try my best. The best way that I can put this into words is to add everything from the previous layers, but with more detail. And here I find that reference is very important for this, so I recommend pulling up some references for lighting, clothing, hair, especially if you're doing like a piece that's like your own concept, like your own character, since there are no really reference images for that exactly. I hope that makes sense. Always make sure that you have some references for what you're going for, like clothes, shoes. You get the point. I've seen some artists say that you should limit how many colors you use, and that can be true in some instances, but for this specific style of rendering, I add as many as I want. In fact, I feel like more the better. I never really stick to just one color palette. I just use as many colors as I can without it looking muddy. I recommend getting some nice texture brushes to use. Here are some of my favorites. I also like to use a textured blending brush. Unless you're not going for a texture look, that's cool too, but I find that it blends my colors more organically and makes it look less flat. My favorites are gouache and watercolor brushes, but it really depends on what I'm working on. The rendering part takes a bit of time, so I'm going to let this play and then I'm going to jump back in when we get to the next layer. Unfortunately, I lost all of the real-time footage of me doing the shading and the highlights, so basically the end process of this drawing, so I have to use the speed paint. But these are two of the most simple things. The shading is just a grayish purple that I put in all areas that I want shaded, really simple. And then for the lighting and the highlights, I put this layer above everything else and put it on the add mode. I'm not sure if every program has this. I think most drawing programs do. And what this does, it just gives it a really glowy effect. You can also just use this brush in Procreate, which just does it automatically without having to add the add on the layer, if that makes sense. I was stumped on the background, so I ended up just doing this like light gradient for the back. I think it looks okay. And then I added a little filter over top, and this is how it turned out. The background is really boring, and honestly I might change it out for something else, but I'm really happy with how this came out. I hope this video was helpful for you. I tried my best to explain everything. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Bye!